We hear in the book of Genesis that we are made in the image and likeness of God. Male and female, we are made in the image and likeness of God. Right? And we are also made in the freedom of God. We are given free will. And all of this was good. God made it, and he said, it is good. It is very good. So, made in the image and likeness of God with free will. And then God gave us some commandments, or we might call them instructions. Do these things, you do these things, and everything's going to work out okay. That's the way it is. These are your instructions for life. That's how things work. So, so far so good. Know what's coming next? Sometimes we're not so good at following instructions, are we? No, we think we got a better idea, or we don't refer to those commandments, to those instructions. Because if we lived them out well, things would go much, much better in life. And when we don't, they don't go so well. And we can look at those commandments, those instructions, in terms of two groups. The first group, of course, of the first three, it has to do with our relationship with God, and the last 7 has to do with our relationships with others. First 3, doing with the relationship with God. Now, you might notice I'm using the term our relationship with God, not doing what God tells you to do, so therefore you're in compliance with the law. Okay, that's not what I mean. Although it's a good thing to be in compliance with the law, that's not what I mean. What I mean is living in relationship with God. You shall have no strange gods before you. I am the Lord your God. Know me as your God. God says, know me. Bring me into your life. And extend yourself, your life to me. Be in relationship with me. Establish that relationship, and then the other 2 things come easily. Don't take my name in vain. Why would you take the name of someone you love in vain, in your right mind? And remember, keep holy the Sabbath. What these 3 commandments, instructions, if you will, tell us is that we are not God, and thank God for that. Because there's so much we don't know. I don't know about you, but I've lived long enough to know that some of my plans, luckily, did not come about. Because they weren't good. They weren't for my good or the good of other people. I come to realize that there is someone above me, and it's just not my opinion that counts, that God's opinion counts. And sometimes his opinion comes through other people. I open my eyes, my heart, to the fact that there is someone above me who calls me into relationship with him, as he does each one of us. Sometimes that is revealed through other people. His voice is revealed through other people. And the more we come to know God, the more we can anchor our life around him. He's the one who makes us stable. He's the one who keeps us from drifting off into something that we don't even know and we get lost in life. We can anchor our life in him. So he says, keep holy the Sabbath. Is that because God won't feel good about himself if we're not running around worshiping him? What do you think? Of course not. It's because we need to worship a God, our God, the God of all creation. And when we worship that God, then things go better in life. What was going on in the gospel about Jesus clearing the temple is that the temple practices and the exchange of money and bilking the poor out of their money became the most important thing, and not worshiping God. And Jesus says, get out of here. That's not what the temple is for. So, point is for us to come into relationship with God and not to let anything get in its way. And when we do that, things come together. Remember, keep holy the Sabbath. So maybe there's something that just kind of summarizes in a simple way these first three commandments. It's a story about in the late 1800s about a wagon train going from St. Louis to Oregon along the Oregon Trail. And it happened to be a group of rather devout Christians. And they were going along the way, and as they're going along the way, they stop every Sabbath and rest. So far, so good. But it's going a little slower than they thought, so they're getting kind of worried about winter coming on, so they all get together and say, some of them said, well, let's not take time for the Sabbath. Let's just kind of keep right on going 7 days a week. And so there was kind of a discussion among them. And in that discussion, there's some disagreement, and they couldn't agree to disagree. So one group says, well, tell you what, why don't we go on ahead, and you guys go ahead and do your, 6 days and rest thing. And they said, that's just fine. God bless you on your way, and they went. Who do you think got to Oregon first? Pardon me? The ones who took time for the Sabbath. Why? They work 6 days, they rest the 7th. The people and the horses rest up so that when they're moving, they have more energy to make a better time. Isn't that something? What happens when we take time for God? Does God feel better when we worship Him? Maybe He's more pleased, but He doesn't count on that. It doesn't help His self-esteem. It makes us into better people. We know who our God is. We take time to rest, and to rest with the one who made us. Be in relationship with God. And the next 7 commandments, of course, have to do with relationship with other people. How is it that we get along with others? Boy, we do need some instructions with that. Can you imagine a world in which people actually lived out those commandments? What would our world be like? What, for example, would our world be like if people, in a much better way, honored their father and mother? I didn't say, and the commandments don't say, you got to agree with them, does it? It says you honor them. And I wonder if more people honored their mother and father, that there would be fewer people with less loneliness. More people with less loneliness in our nursing homes and retirement centers. You think that might be true? And what would happen if between teenagers and parents, and sometimes there can be, I hear, some disagreement, if the teenagers didn't think that their parents hated their guts, but rather took time and the care to listen to their parents, which again doesn't mean they're going to agree with them, but you listen. Open your hearts to what they have to say. They love you. They made you. What would happen if a world like that? What would happen if we could live in a world where people learned not to kill each other? Whew. Boy, do we need that today, don't we? Just think about the world situation. Wow. Or in our own country with all the murders and all. But since most of us, maybe all of us in here, haven't murdered and won't murder somebody, how is it that we might kill somebody, kill their spirit? Criticism. Through meanness. Through excluding them from our lives. For beating somebody verbally. What would happen if we lived in a world where none of that happened? There was no killing going on. What a better world it would be. Personally. Thou shalt not commit adultery. We all want to be loved. And it is in the loving that we become who it is that we were made to be. And loving takes fidelity, doesn't it? And if someone says, I love you, and as soon as some things go wrong, they're said, I'm out of here, or I'm going for somebody else, well, that's not love. And it doesn't form us into people, because we end up not knowing what love is, nor experiencing it. Shall not commit adultery. Be faithful to the ones that we love, much as that is possible. I know there's sometimes there's need for divorce. I know that. Way to get away from that. At least some of it. Faithful in love. And to show up day after day. Not out of obligation, but out of relationship. Out of love. Thou shalt not steal. Maybe most of us in here don't steal or haven't or won't. Not outright. I heard something on the radio this week. It says, well, it was a good day on Wall Street, which means it's a bad day for workers. Anybody hear that? Wall Street's making all this money. And yet I hear over and over again, but wages are flat. What's that about? Is that stealing? Well, you might not get arrested for it, but I call it unjust. Taken away from somebody else what is their due. Isn't that stealing? Thou shalt not bear false witness against our neighbor. How much would we have to talk about if we didn't gossip about somebody? Really? What do you think? You think we might actually have to think of something much more interesting, much more positive, talk about ideas, share our feelings, share our faith? Maybe that would happen if we stopped talking about other people. And isn't most of the gossip just plain out false? Especially if we don't know what's behind it. Maybe the facts are true, but the motivations are not. And finally, shall not covet the neighbor's wife for the neighbor's good. What would it be like if there wasn't any envy in the world? Do you think we might be happier? Yesterday, we had a mass here for the homeschool kids, and part of the thing was about jealousy, so we had a little sign that says jealousy, and I asked the kids, I said, what's the opposite of jealousy? If you don't want to be jealous, what should you do? And I think she must have been about 8 years old. She raised her hand and said, look at what you have. Brilliant. 8 years old. Look at what you have. Stop looking around. Wouldn't we all be happier if we did that? So this is just a cursory glance at our 10 Commandments, our instructions for living. How'd you do? Okay? Or maybe some improvement needed. I got some improvement needed. St. Irenaeus, who lived in the 2nd century, said, the glory of God is man or woman fully alive. We can't be fully alive unless we are alive in God and alive in the love that we share with other people. These things will get us there.